I'll write part 1 of This Human Had No Idea. Let's make him the father of our future in third-person style using simple English. Here's a condensed 800-word version of The Unremarkable Professor. Dr. Tae-Won Kim walked slowly through the empty university halls. It was almost midnight, but he didn't mind. The quiet helped him think. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. Tae-Won was not famous. Most people at Seoul National University barely noticed him. He taught classes about possible alien life forms even though no one had ever found aliens. Many other teachers thought his work was a waste of time. Keep dreaming about your space monsters, Professor Han had laughed at lunch last week. The rest of us will do real science, Tae-Won didn't argue. He was used to it. At 45, with gray starting to show in his black hair, he had accepted his place as the odd professor with strange ideas. His small lab was at the end of the science building. The room was cluttered, but clean. Bottles of chemicals lined the walls. Machines hummed softly. This was where he felt most at home. Tonight, Tae-Won was mixing chemicals to test a new idea. What if alien life used different building blocks than Earth life? He carefully measured a blue liquid into a glass container. Just a few drops more, he whispered to himself. But his hand slipped. Too much liquid poured in. Tae-Won sighed, expecting to start over. Instead, something strange happened. The mixture began to glow with a soft green light. "That's not right," he said, leaning closer. Under his microscope, Tae-Won saw something impossible. The molecules were moving in patterns. Not random movement, but organized, almost like they were communicating with each other. "This can't be happening," he said, rubbing his tired eyes. But it was real. Over the next hour, the mixture changed. The molecules rearranged themselves into new forms, then changed again. It was as if they were alive, learning, evolving. Tae-Won worked through the night, taking notes and pictures. He forgot about time. He forgot about being hungry. This discovery could change everything scientists knew about life. As morning light came through the window, Tae-Won finally sat back in his chair. His back hurt, his eyes burned, but he couldn't stop smiling. "I need to test this again," he said to the empty room. "I need to make sure it's real." What Tae-Won didn't know was that he wasn't alone. High above Earth, in a ship hidden from human technology, 3 beings watched him on a screen. "The human has done it," said Ji-ho, the lead scientist. "By accident, but still." "Is it really what we're looking for?" asked Mina, looking closely at the screen. Suho, the oldest of the 3, nodded slowly. "Look at those patterns. That's not just chemical reaction. That's the beginning of conscious matter. Something our people haven't achieved in 1,000 years of trying. And he just stumbled into it?" Mina couldn't believe it. "That's the beauty of human thinking," Suho said. "They don't follow rules. They make mistakes. Their minds jump between ideas in ways we can't understand." Ji-ho touched the screen, zooming in on Tae-Won's tired but happy face. "This human has no idea what he's found. No idea what it means for us." "Should we contact him?" Mina asked. Suho shook his head. "Not yet. We need to be sure. We need to test him first." "Test him how?" Ji-ho asked. "Let's see how he handles problems. Let's see how his mind works." Suho looked at the others. "If he really is the one who can save our people, we need to know for certain." Back in his lab, Tae-Won carefully put his discovery in a special container. He would need to work on it. More tonight. For now, he had to teach his morning class. As he walked out, he locked the lab door carefully. His discovery was safe inside. But something felt different today. The air seemed charged with possibility. For the first time in years, Tae-Won felt truly excited about his work. Something important happened last night, he thought as he walked to his classroom. "I don't know what it means yet, but I'm going to find out." He had no idea that alien eyes were watching. No idea that his accidental discovery might save an entire civilization. No idea that soon, everything in his quiet life would change forever. The dim blue light of the observation room cast strange shadows across Jiho's face as he studied the human scientist on the monitor. For 3 weeks now, their ship had remained, cloaked in Earth's orbit, monitoring Dr. Taewon Kim's every move. The Conclave had sent their best team, Jiho, Mi-na, and Suho, to determine if this unremarkable human truly held the key to their survival. "He's working late again," Mina said, entering the room with 3 steaming cups. "4th night this week." Jiho accepted the cup gratefully. The liquid inside glowed slightly, warming his hands. "The compound continues to evolve. Look at these readings." On the screen, Taewon bent over his microscope, completely unaware that the fate of an entire civilization might rest on his shoulders. The Conclave, a union of 7 advanced species from across the galaxy, was facing extinction. After millennia of shared consciousness evolution, their genetic diversity had collapsed. Their bodies were failing. Their children were fewer each generation. "I still don't understand how this happened," Mina said, watching Taewon work. "How did our species become so broken?" Suho, the eldest of the team, joined them. His skin had the pale translucence that marked the later stages of their genetic decline. "We chose efficiency over chaos, unity over individuality. For 10,000 years, we thought ourselves superior to species like humans, and now we need them to save us," Jiho finished. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. The Conclave had observed Earth for centuries, watching humans fight wars, damage their planet, struggle with inequality. Humans were considered primitive, dangerous, unpredictable, yet something in their chaotic individuality had created genetic resilience that the Conclave lacked. "The Council wants our assessment soon," Suho said. "They're growing impatient." On the screen, Taewon yawned and stretched. The compound in his petri dish continued its strange dance of self-organization. "We need to test him," Jiho decided. "We need to understand how his mind works." Mina looked concerned. "The Council forbids direct contact until we're certain." "Not direct contact," Jiho clarified. "Just small challenges, problems to solve. We'll observe his approach." Suho nodded slowly. "Start tomorrow. Nothing too obvious." The next day, Taewon arrived at his lab to find his equipment malfunctioning. The temperature controls on his incubator had failed overnight. His precious compound was at risk. From their ship, the 3 aliens watched intensely. Will he call for help? Mina wondered. Request new equipment? Instead, Taewon dismantled the unit himself. Using basic tools and parts from other equipment, he built a temporary solution. It wasn't elegant, but it worked. "Interesting," Suho murmured. "He didn't follow protocol." "He improvised," Jiho said, making notes. "Created something new from existing parts." Over the next 2 weeks, they presented Taewon with more challenges. They caused small power fluctuations. They altered the composition of his chemicals slightly. They interfered with his computer data. Each time, Taewon found a way around the problem. Sometimes he followed scientific methods. Other times he tried unusual approaches that no conclave scientist would consider. He worked alone, rarely asking for help. "His mind makes connections ours wouldn't," Mina observed. "He sees patterns differently." Meanwhile, the compound continued to evolve. Under Taewon's care, it was developing properties that the conclave's best scientists couldn't replicate. "The Council needs to see this," Suho said finally. "I believe he's the one," Jiho agreed. "His approach is exactly what our people have lost. Creativity born from individual experience." As they prepared their report, they watched Taewon receive bad news from his university. His funding was being cut. His research deemed unnecessary. Instead of giving up, Taewon carefully packed his equipment and the precious compound. That night, he set up a makeshift lab in his small apartment. "He continues without support," Mina said, amazed. "Without resources. Without the collective," Suho added. "This is what we've forgotten, to pursue knowledge for its own sake." Jiho made the final entry in their report. "Subject demonstrates exceptional cognitive adaptability and resource allocation under stress. Recommend immediate contact protocol. Their decision was made. Soon, Taewon Kim would learn that his accidental discovery had caught the attention of beings from beyond the stars. Beings who needed what humans took for granted, the beautiful unpredictability of an individual mind. Taewon's apartment had become a maze of makeshift lab equipment. His dining table now held his microscope and monitoring devices. The kitchen counter was lined with carefully labeled samples. His living room sofa had disappeared under boxes of research materials rescued from his university lab. 3 weeks had passed since the university cut his funding. 3 weeks of working from home, using equipment he'd either borrowed or built himself. His savings were dwindling fast, but Taewon couldn't stop now. Not when his compound kept showing such remarkable properties. Just need to check the temperature, again, he muttered, adjusting a thermometer rigged to a cooking pot that now served as an incubator. What Taewon didn't know was that the aliens watching him had moved to the next phase of their test. The equipment failures at the university had been their doing. Now they would present him with truly impossible challenges, problems no human should be able to solve with Earth's current technology. That night, while Taewon slept, the compound, in his makeshift incubator, began to deteriorate. The carefully maintained molecular structures started to break down, as if rejecting their environment. When Taewon checked his samples the next morning, he stared in horror at the readings. No, 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 he whispered, checking again. This can't be happening. The compound needed conditions his home lab couldn't provide: precise pressure control, specific radiation levels, materials he couldn't access without university resources. In their hidden ship, Jiho, Mina, and Suho watched anxiously. This challenge may be too difficult, Mina worried. We might lose the compound entirely. If he can solve this, he's definitely the one we need, Jiho replied. Taewon paced his small apartment, running his hands through his disheveled hair. Then he stopped suddenly. He grabbed his phone and called someone. Young-ho, it's me, Taewon. Remember that favor you owe me? I need to use your radiation equipment tonight. Young-ho, an old college friend who now worked at a private medical research facility, reluctantly agreed. That night, Taewon smuggled his samples into the building. You have 1 hour, Young-ho warned. If anyone finds out, we'll both lose our jobs. The aliens watched in surprise. He's using social connections to access resources, Suho noted. Very human. Working quickly, Taewon exposed the compound to precise radiation levels, then recalibrated its molecular structure. Instead of trying to recreate perfect lab conditions, he was teaching the compound to adapt to his limited home environment. He's not solving the problem directly, Jiho realized. He's changing the parameters. The next challenge came when the compound needed materials Taewon couldn't possibly obtain, elements rarely found on Earth. The aliens were certain this would stop him. Instead, Taewon remembered an article about meteorite collectors. 2 days later, he was meeting a strange man in a coffee shop who sold him a tiny fragment of space rock for most of his remaining money. This is crazy, he told himself as he walked home with the precious meteorite. I'm spending my rent money on a rock. But when he ground the meteorite into powder and introduced it to his compound, the results were immediate. The molecular structure stabilized in ways Taewon hadn't thought possible. Incredible, Mina whispered as they watched. He found traces of galactic materials in a meteorite fragment. The final challenge was the most difficult. The aliens manipulated the compound to require quantum stabilization, technology humans wouldn't develop for centuries. Taewon spent 3 days without sleep, trying to understand what was happening. Finally, in exhaustion, he fell asleep at his table. He's reached his limit, Suho said sadly. But that night Taewon dreamed of music, of frequencies and harmonics. He woke suddenly at 3 a.m. and began connecting his old music synthesizer to his monitoring equipment. Using sound waves calibrated to exact frequencies, he created a crude but effective form of quantum stabilization. The compound responded, glowing brightly as its molecules danced in perfect patterns. In their ship, the 3 aliens stared in amazement. It's time, Jiho said quietly. He's ready, Suho nodded. Prepare for contact. The next morning, as Taiwan examined his successfully stabilized compound, his doorbell rang. When he opened the door, 3 strangers stood there, 2 men and a woman, all with unusually pale skin and large eyes. Dr. Kim Taewon, said the oldest one. We need to talk about your discovery. Taewon stared at the 3 strangers standing in his doorway. They looked almost human, but something about them felt wrong. Their skin was too smooth, their eyes slightly too large, their movements too precise. Who are you? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. He gripped the doorframe for support. We are researchers, said the oldest one, who called himself Suho. We have been watching your work with great interest. Taiwan's mind raced. Government agents, corporate spies. How did they know about his compound? He started to close the door, but Suho gently placed his hand against it. Please, Dr. Kim. We have traveled very far to meet you. Something in Suho's voice made Taiwan pause. The way he pronounced certain sounds wasn't quite right, and his eyes, they reflected light, differently. Come in, Taiwan said finally, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. But explain yourselves quickly. Inside his cluttered apartment, the 3 visitors looked around with obvious interest. The woman, Mina, approached his makeshift lab setup and studied it without touching anything. Remarkable improvisation, she said. Jiho, the younger-looking man, turned to Taiwan. We need to show you something. Please try not to be afraid. Before Taiwan could respond, Jiho raised his hand. Above his palm, a small ball of light appeared, floating and pulsing with colors Taiwan had never seen before. Taiwan stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. What? What are you? We are from a civilization beyond your solar system, Suho said simply. We call ourselves the Conclave. Taiwan laughed nervously. This is a joke, right? Some kind of prank? In response, Mina touched a device on her wrist. The air in front of Taiwan shimmered, and suddenly he was looking at a 3-dimensional map of star systems. This is Earth, she said, pointing to a tiny blue dot. Then she moved her finger to another point. This is our home world, approximately 89 of your light years away. Taiwan sank into his remaining chair, his legs suddenly weak. This couldn't be happening. Aliens in his apartment? It was impossible. And yet, the evidence floated before his eyes. Why me? He finally managed to ask. Your compound, Jiho explained, gesturing toward Taiwan's lab table. It's the key to saving our species. Over the next hour, they explained everything. How their civilization had evolved through collective consciousness. How their pursuit of perfect harmony had led to genetic stagnation. How they were now facing extinction because their bodies could no longer adapt to new challenges. Our scientists have tried for centuries to solve this problem, Suho said. But we think differently than humans. We lost something important along our evolutionary path. The capacity for random innovation that comes from individual minds. Taiwan struggled to process what he was hearing. And my compound helps with this? Mina nodded. The molecular patterns you created accidentally, they represent a bridge between our biological systems and yours. A way to introduce human genetic diversity into our people without destroying our collective consciousness. We've been testing you, Jiho admitted. The equipment failures, the impossible challenges. We needed to understand how your mind works. Taiwan's eyes widened as he realized the truth. You caused all my problems? Yes, Suho said. And you solved them in ways we never imagined possible. Jiho stepped forward. We can offer you technology beyond your imagination. Cures for diseases, clean energy solutions, space travel capabilities. Taiwan looked at his humble lab setup. The cooking pots, the borrowed equipment, the meteorite that had cost him his rent money. Then he looked back at the aliens. I don't want your technology, he said slowly. I want knowledge, partnership. I want to understand how your minds work, just as you've been studying mine. The 3 aliens exchanged surprised glances. You don't want power? Wealth? Mina asked, confused. Taewon shook his head. I want us to learn from each other. That seems more valuable than any technology. Suho smiled for the first time, an expression that looked slightly uncomfortable on his face. This, he said, is exactly why we need humans. 5 years had passed since the day Taewon met the aliens in his small apartment. Now he stood in a gleaming laboratory unlike anything humans had built. The walls shimmered with subtle energy fields. Advanced equipment monitored the experiment that had changed 2 species forever. The latest results are promising, said Mina, studying holographic data that floated in the air. The genetic template is stable in the 5th generation. Taewon nodded, watching the screens with pride. What had begun as an accidental discovery in his university lab had become the foundation for saving an entire civilization. His compound, combined with conclave technology, had created a method for introducing human genetic diversity into alien biology without disrupting their collective consciousness. Come, said Jiho, who had become Taewon's closest friend among the aliens. They're waiting to meet you. They walked through a doorway that seemed to form from nothing. Beyond it was a garden-like space with trees and flowers from both Earth and the conclave homeworld growing together. In the center, a group of children played under the watchful eyes of caretakers. But these were no ordinary children. Though they looked mostly like the aliens, there was something different about them. Their movements were more spontaneous, their laughter more varied, and their eyes. They had the curious spark that conclave eyes had lost generations ago. The first true hybrids, Suho explained, joining them. He had aged visibly over the years, but his eyes were bright with hope. Human genetic diversity woven into our biology. The best of both species. Taewon watched as the children created an impromptu game, making up rules as they went along. Something no pure conclave child would ever do. They have your gift, Mina said softly. Individual creativity combined with our collective harmony. One child looked up and noticed Taewon. She waved excitedly and ran over. Are you the father? She asked in perfect Korean. Taewon knelt down to her level. What do you mean? They tell us stories about the father of futures, she explained. The human who saved our people with his thinking like water. Taewon smiled. Thinking like water? Jiho translated. It's how we describe human thought patterns now, always flowing, finding new paths impossible to contain. The little girl touched Taewon's hand curiously. Can you teach me to think like water too? You already know how, Taewon told her. It's in you now, part of who you are. Later, as they returned to the laboratory, the Conclave Council was waiting. These were the eldest and wisest of their species who rarely interacted with outsiders. Kim Taewon, said the council leader, her voice echoing strangely as if multiple voices spoke at once. We have made our decision. Suho translated. The formal language. Earth is now designated as a protected cradle of innovation. No interference will be allowed in human development, and you are officially named the Father of Futures in our histories. Taewon felt overwhelmed. I just followed my curiosity. Any scientist might have done the same. The council leader shook her head. No, what you gave us cannot be measured in data or technology. You showed us what we had forgotten, the value of being separate yet connected, of thinking as individuals while caring for the whole. That night, Taewon looked out from the observation deck at Earth, glowing blue in the distance. He thought about his old apartment, his cooking pot incubators, his struggle to keep his research alive when no one believed in it. Will you stay with us? Jiho asked, joining him. Or return home? Taewon smiled. Both, I think. I want to teach on Earth again, share what I've learned, but I also want to watch these children grow. He placed his hand on the window, covering the distant Earth with his palm. One ordinary human accidentally bridging 2 worlds, the father of a future he never could have imagined.